Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Well, it had to happen sometime, didn't it? Here we have the sickest, most diseased performances of Tchaikovsky's Fifth and Sixth Symphonies that you're ever likely to hear, brought to you by Maestro Mukus Poschner. That is Markus Poschner, but in this case it's Mukus, and his cohort, the dastardly Dr. Christoph Flemm, or Flemm, but it's really Flemm in this case. So Mukus and Flemm, that's what we have. And here we have on Claves with the Orchestra Della Svizzera Italiana. Oh, where do we begin? How do we even conceptualize the catastrophe that this represents? It's just oh yeah. All right, let's start with the orchestra. Here they are. Isn't that nice? As you can see, the Orchestra della Svizzera Italiana, which has got a lot of work doing recordings. I mean, really a lot, unlike Hyperion and other small labels where they do. It's a chamber orchestra. See, it's got like two basses. That's it. They have no business playing Tchaikovsky. None. Not the major symphonies. Tchaikovsky expected a full orchestra. Let's not kid ourselves. That's a prerequisite. Right? A total prerequisite. And you can BS all you want about, Tchaikovsky's intentions and this and that and what was happening. Tchaikovsky wanted a full orchestra. Period. Now, what has happened here? Dr. Flemm here has collaborated with Maestro Mukus on new or text critical editions of both symphonies. Oh, it looks like Maestro Mukus has been hanging around Bruckner too much, hasn't he? But it's not just Poschner and the Bruckner people who are doing this. There's a concept out there, which is that any time a composer or someone else who was alive at the time conducted one of these works and did something to them, this constitutes a complete, separate, certified, ratified, authentic edition, independently of what may subsequently have been published or what the performance tradition or history of the work is. All of that stuff goes out the window because on one day, in this case in Hamburg, in 1880-something, Tchaikovsky conducted the Fifth Symphony and he made substantial cuts in the finale. Now, these cuts are well known. They used to be standard things. It's not how the symphony was published, of course, and it's not what Tchaikovsky's ultimate intentions evidently were, based on how the symphony was published or what we know. We know that Tchaikovsky had issues with this symphony, with the Fifth. We know that he had reservations about the finale. Everybody had reservations about the finale. Brahms had reservations about the finale. Tovey had reservations about the finale. But the consensus since then has been that making cuts does not resolve those issues. Either the finale works or the finale doesn't. The fact of the matter is that audiences love it and have no problem with it whatsoever. So there's no point in anybody else jaw-jawing about whether or not the finale is effective or not. The cuts consist of the entire, or mostly the entire development section of the finale, which is just horrible. It's not one of Tchaikovsky's greatest passages, but the cuts are worse than anything Tchaikovsky did by leaving it in, and a drastic cut at the very end of the coda, which deletes most of the repeat of the motto theme, which kind of makes the whole point of the symphony irrelevant. You know what I mean? It's just a terrible, terrible, terrible cut. It was a horrible mistake on Tchaikovsky's part, but that's okay. Tchaikovsky gets to do it. He's the composer. And when you're trying out a new work, and you only get to hear it when it's performed, right? So when you perform it, you have to do things. You tinker, you play with it, you try and see what's going to work and what the possibilities are. Tchaikovsky gets the right to do that. But every time he did that in the performance history of the work is not an independent edition. And it's not a legitimate option for future people to go back and say, well, this is what Tchaikovsky's intentions were. It doesn't justify an or text. It may justify, doing what he did on that day in Hamburg. Like if you play it in Hamburg, you could only play it the way he played it in Hamburg. Okay, you want to take that position like a moron? Go ahead, Mr. Mukus, take that position. And Dr. Flemm, have a great time. But otherwise, what's the point? The point is it's just completely useless, worthless Tchaikovsky fifth. But that's not just the issue. The issue isn't just the cuts. And the issue isn't just the business with the new edition, which Dr. Flemm here, modestly suggests is a legitimate alternative to the way that the symphony was published and is usually played. Again, as I said, that's medical malpractice, Mr. Flemm, and musical malpractice. Anyway, so the other problem is that the performance sucks. First of all, as I said, the orchestra is just too small. The strings are emaciated and too thin, and the balances are off, and as a result, Maestro Mukus there has to tamp down what the brass are doing, what the timpani are doing, what everyone else is doing. I mean, the expressive range runs the gamut from A to B. I mean, that's what happens here. Just at the very first movement, I mean, it's almost unlistenable, really. You know how once the big climax gets going, the transition to the second subject. Well, normal people create a transition of more excitement. The tempo increases, the energy increases, the volume increases. Nothing happens here. Nothing happens. It's absolutely Brucknerian. It's straight time beating tempo with no increase in energy, no increase in excitement. Nothing is happening. It's absolutely atrocious, horrible, awful conducting. It really is. I mean, it makes the music sound pale, flaccid, sick. I mean, just wan and washed out, and with all of its color just drained yuck, horrible, awful. So the fifth is a complete abortion of a performance. It really is. Absolutely worthless. And the sixth is no better. Okay, he doesn't make the cuts. Thank goodness. But there's more BS about what the text says about this and that, and the finale, and the da. I mean, the development section of the first movement, and the waltz, that waltz, oh my God, it's never sounded thinner and less alluring. I mean, Tchaikovsky marks it grazioso or something here, doesn't he? The con grazia, with graciousness, with elegance. This is just, it's like being naked in a snowstorm. Is what this thing sounds like. It's terrible. The march, oh my goodness, there's no excitement, no build. It's fast but rigid, and the finale is the finale's unkillable. It doesn't matter how you meddle with the tempos or whatever he claims to be doing based on the text and the piano score, which has more tempo things than the manuscript, which is I'm so sick of this crap. It is beyond sickening. It really is. It makes no sense. There's no musical justification for any of this nonsense, and the performances speak for themselves, or don't. They just are the most pallid, and it's like they have tuberculosis or something. They should be up on Magic Mountain. With what's her name? Claudia Shoshat, taking the cure. It's absolutely insane that this stuff gets released, recorded, legitimized in any reasonable way. I was disgusted with the entire project. Absolutely appalled. And here's a guy. I mean, so he's making his career doing Bruckner symphonies. Well, evidently, he can't do anything else, or he shouldn't be doing anything else. Sometimes he shouldn't even be doing that. I don't understand. I don't understand how this stuff gets recorded and released, and the chutzpah the sheer unmitigated chutzpah of Mukus and Flemm here, insisting that this is somehow a valid, critical, or texty, something alternative to the somehow evil and defective legitimate editions. But like I said, this is not unique. This is not a unique thing that's happening. It's happening all the time. Look at what's his name? What's his name? Yeah, what's his name? Wilson, with his recent Daphnis and Chloe, where he's going back to Ravel's original manuscripts. What was published back in the day while the composer was still alive most of the time and was there? These people were not saboteurs. They weren't out to ruin music. And the people who are doing this garbage to justify their horrible, awful, unidiomatic, terrible, pointless, unnecessary performances of this music, they're not doing us a favor. They're not doing the composer a favor. I mean, most of the changes that these people make, except when they're like horrible, like the cuts of the finale of the fifth, most of those changes are de minimis. They're virtually inaudible. They're completely unnecessary. And they never, ever, ever, ever override an interpretively inspired view of the music. That's the point. What difference does it make what you do with the Sixth Symphony if the orchestra is too small and they can't play it a real fortissimo, or your conducting is rigid and unidiomatic and your balances suck? I mean, what does it matter? I mean, if you do all the rest of this garbage, I just can't stand it. It's enough to it's Flemm and Mukus and Flemm. That's what it is. So, keep on listening, friends, but not to Mukus and Flemm here. It's not going to help you. It's really not a healthy thing. Take care.